So I want to say thank you. This real honor to be here. And I'll add my one joke, which is that, I'm here as a guy due to the original copy number variation in the genome with my vestigial X chromosome. I am a genome biologist and geneticist, and I'm excited. I am actually the founding president of the Genome Writers Guild, which is a genome engineering society, and we're partnering with the Rosalind Franklin Society next summer at a meeting that's in Mayo, July 23rd to 25th, and it's going to be honoring the 100th birthday of Dr. Rosalind Franklin, so it's very exciting. I hope some of you can attend. I also want to introduce Dr. Jenny Shapiro. Dean Shapiro is in the back. She represents the Mayo Clinic's Research Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and I hope that you get a chance to meet with her. I know some of you had at this meeting. And then finally, I just want to really recognize that although I'm going to talk about things, I'm actually really, my primary job here is as an enthusiastic supporter of this Leader Launch team. I'm not actually that team, and I'll show you why. But I'll showcase their work and happy to connect and continue to support those efforts. So there's too many things in front of me. Which one do we control? This one? Or do I just do here? Okay, this will work. Okay, so let's start. Some of you may have, from talking about communication, there was the Ken Burns recent documentary on the Mayo Clinic, and it only covers some of the Mayo Clinic, but I thought I'd put it from the perspective of especially this audience, Mayo Clinic. So we are over 60,000 employees. We're on 3 campuses. There's a Rochester mothership campus and then a really actively growing Arizona and Florida campuses. And 2 of 3 staff are women. It's a historically long-time women majority organization. And actually, this was a wonderful, I had an opportunity to meet Cokie Roberts before she passed away recently. She was a member of the Mayo Clinic trustees, and she gave this fantastic commencement ceremony reminding everybody the Mayo Clinic was actually started by a pushy nun, wonderful Mother Alfred Mose, and the Sisters of St. Francis. And what do I mean by that? I'm actually going to give you some details because although Ken Burns talks about some of it, from my point of view as an entrepreneur and startup and program developer, it really shouldn't be the Mayo Clinic, okay? So they actually started everything and then recruited the Mayo brothers. Actually, the dad declined everything and was never been a part of the clinic. It was the 2 brothers, but it was over 150 years ago. So what do I mean by that? So the sisters identified the need, they determined the mission, they secured the startup funding, they recruited the key staff, which were those 2 MDs. They purchased the land and the building. They staffed the hospital, and they served as administrators, and that's still true today. And it's called the Mayo Clinic. Okay, so this audience, right? That's the invisible, right? The invisible hands of the Mayo Clinic. Where are we right now? I'm a dean of the graduate school, recently started that job. This incoming class is 54% women. It's actually a little bit down. Our historical is over 60%, just sort of stochastic year. And we have students from 8 different countries just from this incoming class. We're a small class, but we have a global presence and a global participation, and also in the US. The big picture here is that Mayo really recognizes that by 2030, we're going to have to make major changes due to the healthcare and the science changes ahead of us. And what does that mean? That means that if we're going to be successful with the New York Stem Cell Institute having the same issue, we have to untap our entire Mayo Clinic potential. Now let's pause for a minute, right? We have 2/3 of our staff are women, and if they're not fully empowered, there's no way Mayo Clinic's going to get where we need to be by 2030. So that's what's behind us, and representing in part it's good for Mayo to really achieve these goals, many of the goals that are represented at this conference. Okay, so despite that history, let me show you the headwinds. So arguably the first CEO was a nun, but the official CEOs have all been male for the 150 years. Almost all department chairs are men. Last time I checked for the basic sciences, only 2 were women, and it may be slowly improving. We will see. Our faculty are still largely men. And I'll pause. There's an important distinction for that. So Mayo Clinic has, we talk about retention rates, has at least a 97% faculty retention rate. Okay, so that's wonderful in some ways, but it has this unanticipated consequence, which is that we're also one of the top hospitals in the world. So we have a lot of 70-year-old scientists getting NIH grants, and they're almost all, by definition, guys. So you can't hold it against them for doing well and living long, but we have this scenario that historically we haven't, we still are underrepresenting that. The admin leadership in many units has historically been men. The exception, of course, teams like nursing, which is, I'm not, it's important, but I would say that it's historically polarized. And as somebody who thinks about this a lot, we actually have very few women change agents because their voices are suppressed. I'm saying it as a guy, not saying it for women. I'm telling you that their voices are not heard. There are fewer women inventors. I'm going to actually show you a slide of that. And there's almost no women entrepreneurs. Not zero, but it would be statistically zero if you really think about it. Okay, so here's an example of that invention and entrepreneurship gap. If you look at the numbers in research, actually, we're almost 70%. I would miss that. I went and got the numbers, Jenny. We're almost 70% women in our research STEM force at Mayo, and yet it's only 5% of the productivity that we would expect for invention and entrepreneurship from the women part of our workforce. Okay, so there's two ways to think about it. Okay, this is terrible. Okay, you may say this is terrible. I'm an optimist. Wow, if I can fix that, imagine what I can do, right? This is one of those messages you need to be telling. I'm trying to do. If you tell your supporters, guys in the room, if you can fix this, imagine what you can do with your institution, right? This is the kind of thing that I need to get you to be empowered. We heard this. I'm going to say it. You need to say it, okay? And tell that message. Okay, this is the opportunity. So where you can identify these key pieces and you can turn them to opportunity, that's how you're going to make long-term standing changes. Okay, so what's the hypothesis? I'm a scientist. It's that enhanced leadership and entrepreneurship training tied to action. I don't care about just knowledge. We've known for many, many years of these issues. It's actually how are you going to tie it to action will untap this potential. Okay. So the mission statement, I am, prior to taking on the deanship, I'm still director of the Office of Entrepreneurship. It's to empower a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship through education at Mayo. This is the umbrella, and this is where the Leader Launch sits and comes through Mayo. And in partnership with the Research Office of Inclusion and Diversity, we have launched this thing called Leader Launch for empowerment of women staff. Why do I care about this? Why do we care about entrepreneurship? Most people think of translational science as bench to bedside, and that's true. But in reality, for healthcare products, being able to have a meaningful scale and having a global impact, it's almost always a bench to business to bedside. So we call this the 3B model, and we're really focusing on being able to educate people of what the 3B model is compared to the traditional 2B model. Okay, so our goal in the office is to train scientists in innovation and entrepreneurship, these skills and concepts to expand our resource options, grow our startups, and enhance the Mayo impact. And there's initiatives at all three of the sites, including the Destination Medical Center, the largest development project in the state of Minnesota history, growth in Phoenix, and growth in Jacksonville. Our goal is the office to make this all happen. Okay, what do we offer? This is just a quick background so you understand where the Leader Launch sits. We offer education and consultations and a whole set of coursework. I'm going to tell you about that, including the key top right, which is the women's programming piece. So why should we target women's programming? We think that it's inherently empowering. We think that it focuses on solutions. And we know this is a major bottleneck globally for entrepreneurship. So my view is if we can crack this at Mayo, it's the opportunity for Mayo to have a leadership role in global entrepreneurship. And heck, why not do it at Mayo, where it was started by women entrepreneurs 150 years ago, and a wonderful pushy nun. Okay, so what do we do? Just for those, we do business canvas. We use lean startup principles. Some of this is published, and we have expanded. If you're interested, this is for those that are nuanced in the entrepreneurship educational components. We offer now a certificate program so that you can, if you were already a graduate student or a professional or a Mayo clinician, you can get a certificate in this, or we can actually a terminal master's through the clinical and translational sciences track as a partnership with our educational programming in the graduate school. So that's a key piece. A part of the outcome is being able to do not these talks in 15, 20 or an hour, but being able to do it all in 120 seconds. That's a pitch. And we actually run our own version of the pitch competition. We're in Minnesota. The state fish is the walleye, so it's the walleye tank. And the next one is December 6th, and we have 20 to 25 companies that will be pitching. A number of them are women entrepreneurs. Okay, so in that context, we really pushed what we're going to do for women's programming. We call it We Spark, and it's the goal to educate and empower more women in this STEM leadership and to really spur our increased translation discoveries into clinical practice. We have to get them in the innovation pipeline. We have to get them and hear their voices and empower them. And so one of the things we identified was that we didn't have enough internal capacity to do this. And through the getting the entrepreneurship ecosystem up and running, including some wonderful walleyes, which are our judges, we had a chance to meet this team at Capita 3 led by Dr. Pam York, Sarah Russick, and Barbara Burr. Pam is a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois and also ran and set up the University of Iowa Tech Transfer Office before she became her own entrepreneur and set up her own companies. Pam's awesome. She should actually be here giving this talk, and I assume next year you will be doing so. But Pam and Sarah are like me, impatient. And Pam just shared that she recently, there was a full powwow of venture capital and entrepreneurship groups just recently held in the Twin Cities, and they're all bemoaning that, you know, all this issues with entrepreneurship, but she's like, these issues have been known since the 1980s. It's not new, okay? So what's the difference? The difference is how do you go from this awareness to action? And that's what the goal of this focus is. So most of these slides, you all know all of this, so I'm just gonna get down to the key points. So women experience lower levels of confidence, and we think that that's a key component, and lower performance in STEM environments. And gender-specific leadership development may be beneficial. That's sort of at the heart of Capita 3. And the goal with Capita 3 in the Leader Launch program is to give the women leaders and empowering them for confidence and key components were actionable outcomes for this process, and not taking a 5-year plan, all right? So in fact, it's actually only 21 days to start. That's the initial seeding. There's 4 3-hour sessions, and I actually haven't taken this because it's all women cohorts, right? And the Capita 3 team is not Mayo, so they're outside of Mayo. This is a completely safe zone for the women leaders to develop. There's a cohort effect. There's actually the cohort effect during the education, and there's a post-cohort effect of intra-cohort effects that we're doing. And the goal is to really have an individual major milestone. I've been on the selection committee, and all of the candidates have an individual milestone set before they enter. You have a goal in place, you have a supportive environment that's a part of the requirement, and then you spend this cohort around figuring out how to make that happen. And as she points out, high psychological safety. I want to think it's really important. You have to be able to be empowered, be able to think clearly and effectively. What do we know? That this safety helps for the growth and expectation for this. We know that there's collective intelligence from the cohorts effect. I don't think I have to explain that to you, but I think these are key concepts as opposed to individual coaching that's often used in the systems right now. And the goal is to have the individuals make an unexpected leap. The goal is really to push the individuals to take a big step, not a little step, in the process and to empower them to do so. I'm just going to finalize with the goal is to teach the leaders in this process because we want them to be catalytic in their units. So we're hoping that they will be able to operate and showcase themselves, right? Physician heal themselves, right? Be able to be successful first to allow you to do this. So what are the kind of data? We've been doing this a couple of years. The qualitative assessment is high quality. I'm going to show you as an institutional some of the impact. So it's 98% of the learners are approving, 92% experience significantly increased confidence. I can tell you anecdotally that the participants are clearly different 3 weeks later. I can tell you that right now. It's a really amazing process as somebody who watched this happen. And then 80+% are on track. Actually, we want that number to be lower because if they're all fully on track, then they're not taking sufficient risk. So we're actually thinking about trying to make sure that the steps are higher and bigger because we would like them to have that step. Okay, what can you get? What participants can expect is confidence, clarity, and decisive action around their results, really trying to emphasize that when you have success, it feeds forward into the psychology and the implementation process, as well as the training. The goal is to have them be perceived as a top leader in their unit. Okay, from the point of view of Mayo, where I sit, why do I think it's great? I've been watching it. We started it as an experiment with 10 seats, 10 with the initial cohort. We ended up still having 30 applicants. We then opted to 15, and we have 50 applicants. We opened it up to 3 cohorts recently, and we had 3 times. We continue to have this process where even though we add the slots for our courses, right, we have 3 times the number of applicants. And I'm going to tell you right now, 95% would be fully qualified to take this course. So it's not that we're lacking qualified. We actually have hit this really interesting flywheel inside Mayo. And one of the issues is the alumni referral is very strong. The second is that as somebody who looked at these applicants, they came to me and it was interesting. Some of them are actually really high level inside Mayo. And we're like, why in the world are they coming to us for leadership development? We were aspiring, we thought we were going to do grad students and postdocs and maybe some early junior faculty. And it turns out that Mayo has this very traditional referral process that if the department chair recognizes you as a future leader, then you get referred to all of the leadership training at the big institution. But if you're not referred by the department chair, then you lay dormant in your leadership space. This was one of the few opportunities for collective grouping to identify future leaders, to either tap them on the shoulder or for people to self-nominate. And in fact, every single one of these candidates actually was taking risk just nominating themselves in our environment. I reflect that. I cannot tell you again, every single one of these candidates in the Mayo Clinic ecosystem, as the guy, I'm saying it as the guy because the women won't say it, every single one of them was taking risk by saying that they felt that they needed this training. Okay, this is the kind of environment we were trying to wrestle with. And then I'm excited by that because this is building a set of cohorts. These individuals, they continue to talk, they continue to meet. The multiple cohorts effect, it's building that army inside through cohort connectivity. And what I realize is that one of the empowerments of this is by getting into the course that's formally approved by the institution, there's an empowerment to the voice empowerment for these individuals. So it's an interesting scenario. We've been doing this about 1.5 years. I don't really know what the long term is going to be, but that's what's going on. We've integrated it within our entrepreneurship programming. We have 2 onboarding processes, time windows. It starts in September or in February, and these leader launch, we're offering them right before it so that if you are interested in being entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, you can take our courses. The idea is to build this in and have it integrated in this broader programming. So that's what it is. I've been tasked with the opportunity to showcase this. I'm again the advocate and the cheerleader, and I'm also here asking if you think that such a program would help empower change at your institution. My name and contact is here, and happily take any questions. Thanks.